My name's Tony Morton. I am the co-owner and gallery director of Kasum Contemporary Fine Art in the Plaza District of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. You know what's going to be fun? Trying to get this hung without destroying anything. When you curate a space, it's really not any different than creating an artwork. I guess you could say I paint with other people's paintings. And placing things in the right place is just a matter of a little geometry. Because that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm taking a lot of things that are vastly different and I'm making them somehow cohesive. And that requires a lot of consideration of balance and movement and rhythm, the way people are going to wander through the composition. And there you go, slightly canted with the tail higher. Oh man, that is really pretty. What is the finish on that, Morgan? Is it a milk?
Yeah.
My family's always been really connected to the arts. So I started consulting for galleries because I had a natural connection to the art world. Yeah, and then with just the simple bloop bloop. And that led to me becoming a gallery director at one point. Flash forward another 5 or 6 years, we opened a gallery here, my wife and I. Yep. You know, it was never planned. That's pretty fly, man. Good old plaster walls. The majority of gallerists, dealers are pretty well off. Typically when they get into the business, they get into it much later in life, when they have a lot more flexibility than my wife and I do. Still works, that's good. When we built this space out, it meant that in 30 days everything had to happen, from plumbing to HVAC to sheetrock to paint to lighting to surveillance monitoring to whatever. That was me. When I did the build out on this building, I lost 30 pounds in 30 days. It's pretty outrageous. And it was just 12-hour days in August trying to get things done because nobody else was going to do it for me. And we didn't have the budget to outsource it. I take out the trash, I mop the floors, I plan exhibits 9-10 months in advance and communicate with artists on a regular. I send out, I don't even know, probably 1,000 emails a month personally. Good Lord. That doesn't include, business networking stuff that's going to go out in bulk, the number of phone calls that I wrangle. I work 80 hours a week.
You want to tilt it up? Let's tilt it up.
We make our money on commission. If I don't sell art, I go out of business. We get zero government subsidization. We don't have any donors coming in supporting us. Our artists don't pay cooperative fees.
There we go.
We are a very unique type of business in this state. Between your two major cities, you can pretty much count them on your two paws. There are not a lot of art dealers here, and it's because it's a very fickle and risky business. Like I say, you're standing on art and art alone.
Come on, now that is rad.
Tony knows a lot of people, and he represents and gives us a really great clean space to display work in. I'm not necessarily the best with people, and it's good for me just to be able to take stuff to him and him take good photos of it and write up good stuff about it and show it to the people that needs to see it.
Kind of like the middleman. I make the art in my studio, I take it to Tony or Kasum or gallery, whatever, and then they bring in the crowds, and then we split the money up, and I can make things just for the gallery, and then you can take care of all the rest of it.
The galleries are vital, all types of galleries, from your nonprofit emerging artist galleries to your museum galleries, to your cooperative galleries, to your studios, to your dealers. It's all important. It all works together.
Hi, honey.
How you doing?
Good. You remember Madison?
I do remember Madison.
And this is
I don't know if we've met. Jacob? It's my first time. Good to meet you. Welcome to the party. Yeah. This show in many ways is about making people uncomfortable. These pieces tell stories And the stories that they tell in many ways capture a certain edgy darkness through maybe the visuals, the emotional intensity. But that's kind of the aligning theme of this show, and I think it'll be our most progressive show of the year. I'm very excited to share it with Oklahoma. It is definitely a show you could consider risky for this type of gallery here. Joe Turk is one of these artists that paints for himself. There's a certain darkness to it. I like to say that Joe paints the darkness that makes us appreciate the light. His works are edgy, but in some way lead around to a good lesson. Undeveloped Area Farms, the majority of their works revolve around a story that they've been telling for some time about Scout. Scout, who comes in the form of a mouse skeleton. Scout's been on an epic quest. So much of their work is about fantasy. Morgan is he's a professor at OSU. He's also a working artist who has done really, really well for himself. He's established himself pretty well across the United States, from Florida to California. He's an amazing artist who went from being a jeweler to being a furniture maker to being a sculptor to honestly being an incredible designer and fabricator. Scott Henderson is the artist. The piece is Tree of Life. It's in many ways an homage to a classical anatomical piece, but it's filled with symbolism, and his work has a history of being kind of rooted in science and mysticism. The piece is by KJ. What I really like about his work is the cut style. The way he cuts his wood blocks and his lino blocks is just wildly aggressive. It's methodical, nothing about printmaking is primitive, but it's crude, and it's aggressive, and it's in the moment, it's very alla prima. She's probably in the top 1 people on the planet. No, she's an amazing artist. And I'm not just saying that because she's my wife and a co-owner in this business. We don't show her work very often. And this particular painting that she's producing, we'll see a painting for that series once every year and a half, 2 years. It's an epic undertaking. But the piece is a juxtaposition of grace with absolute devastation. And I think when people see it, they'll understand it just by that simple description. I hope that when people experience art, regardless of where they experience it, they're forced to ask questions about themselves, about what they thought they were going to experience when they first walked up to a piece versus what they walked away with. Museums are there to preserve artwork, right? And galleries are here to provide the artwork that will eventually be preserved. All right, over the next 150 years, they're depending on people to collect those works and love them and give them a home and protect them so that one day they can enter a museum and be preserved for the future. Art has a ton of value, but it's subtle. Before you realize that, you've got to experience it. Wine tastes great, but you have to drink a fair amount of wine before it tastes great. And that's kind of the case with art. The more of it you experience, the more value it begins to have. There's no reason to be afraid of coming in a gallery, You could stand outside and stare through the window and get 1/1000th of the experience that you could by coming inside. It's not a car sales lot. Nobody's going to attack you. I want people to come in and appreciate art. 99% of people, what I'm giving them is a free opportunity to appreciate something that they could otherwise pay $15 to a museum to go see. Art can help you realize things about yourself. By seeing something that you are incapable of seeing, you yourself gain a new perspective. That can turn inward, it can turn outward, but regardless, it opens up pathways that didn't exist.